rise stories in modern rugby. Gareth Steenson's journey starts in Dungannon, Northern Ireland, where early rejection by Ulster could easily have been the end of the road. Instead, he became the spark that sent him to England, first through Rotherham and the Cornish Pirates, and ultimately to the Exeter Chiefs in 2008, a club that at the time had ambition but no guarantees. What followed now is part of Premiership folklore. Gareth became Exeter's all-time leading point scorer, kicking more than 2,000 points with a level of calm that defined the team's identity. He was central to their promotion into the top flight, their first Premiership title, including pressure kicks that sealed the 2017 final, and the European Champions Cup triumph in 2020. Since retiring, he's moved into coaching and business, carrying forward the same clarity, composure, cultural impact that shapes Exeter's transformation. Gareth, it's brilliant to have you with us.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Gareth, on the business end, and we're in for a good story here today with all you've done in rugby, and everyone knows you for the Chiefs, but it's fair to say you've been on a resilient path. And, so the first section, we're going to talk about setbacks and resilience. As Fitzy said, you were released by Ulster early in your career. Many people, when they hit a setback, they don't move. You carried on with Rotherham and Penzance and then moved to the Chiefs. So what kept you going, perhaps when you didn't think your career was going in the right direction at the time?
Look, it's hard to say. Look, I had a great family support around me, a great network. My parents were obviously really important for that. And I always had a real drive. I loved sport. I always wanted to be involved in sport in some shape or form. Right from when I was a young kid, my parents had me out playing soccer, cricket, football, hockey, everything, you name it. Rugby was actually one of the last things I kind of got into. But yeah, I kind of got into rugby on the basis of the school I went to, the Royal School Armagh. Was either play rugby with the school on the Saturday morning or have detention. So that's kind of where that came from.
Good motivation.
But look, I love being involved in a team. Great motivation. But I love being involved with a team. And sport, it's kind of like whenever I got involved, as you get a bit older you get picked for representative teams, Ulster schools came and knocking. And I got into those sort of teams, and I kind of just had a thought process that it would just happen for me. I got selected for Ireland under 21s, captain in two World Cups, won a couple of golden boots. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, kind of thought it would happen a little bit. I maybe sat back in my laurels a little bit. I probably didn't put as much time into my education, and really put a lot on it, which now when I look back on, maybe at the time wasn't the right thing to do, but from a resilience piece, I always had a drive around me that I wanted to do sport. And I was like anything, is just trying to get that opportunity. And I probably now, when you look back and you talk about maybe not getting an opportunity with Ulster, if I probably look at myself, it was probably my own doing. If I'd actually sat back, worked a little bit harder, had a little bit more, maybe trained a little bit more in different areas, maybe not took the shortcuts, might have been a different story.
So just one follow up on that, Gareth. When you like Rotherham and Penzance are great sides, I know both of them as well. So, but you obviously golden boot, captain Ireland under 21s. You thought you're going to play for Ulster and Ireland. And when you're in Rotherham or Penzance, did you ever think, or did you keep saying to yourself, well, did you keep the faith in your ability, basically? At that point?
Yeah, 100%. Like when I went to Rotherham, my whole goal was to get home. It was only ever I'm going to go give this a try over in England. I knew nothing about it. It was a coach who had been trying to get me. I've been 4 years out of school at this point, so I'm 22 years of age. It's kind of, I've just been told by Ulster that we're going to keep David Humphreys on for another year. And we were bringing through, I think Paddy Wallace was there at the time as well. So there's a few really, really good players in front of me in that position. Whereas now I either go and play club rugby and try and find a job, or do I take the risk, go over to Rotherham? Now I went over to Rotherham and I hadn't a clue about anything that was going on. I didn't know the area. I was going to work in the community. I was actually going out reading to kids in schools and coaching in the local community. So it was very much a grounding thing for me. I didn't really know how to look after myself. I'd never been away from home. It was a real big, steep learning curve. And when I agreed to go as well, I agreed on a Monday. That Friday, I found out my father had terminal cancer as well. So it was all a bit much. But again, I had great support from my family and my parents. They really said, "This is your opportunity to go." So that's why that opportunity to go to Rotherham, I'm so grateful to have experienced that. And I definitely think that gave me a real kind of grounding in, it wasn't ever handed to me. Now, I probably at that stage needed that lesson. I wish I'd have had it a little bit earlier. Not 22 years of age, but yeah, at the time, it felt like a last chance to learn really for that.
Sounds like there was a lot of personal growth within that period of time. Can you speak to some of the specifics and how it molded you into the man you are today?
Yeah, no, for me it was not having it all your own way, I suppose. I've looked at, and it's like you make your own luck as well. So, like, timing is another thing. My timing at Ulster, with the players that were in front of me, wasn't probably right. If it had been maybe 2 years earlier or 2 years later, it might have been a different story. But these are all if, buts, and maybes. You kind of make your own journey. I went to Rotherham with the mindset that I've just been told my father has, like, that was a real person. That was a real hardship, especially my brother had actually just got married, so he'd moved out of the house. I was moving away in like the same year. It just seemed everybody left. But to go away there to experience, going out to different schools, different areas. Like, I went into special needs schools as well. It gave me a real kind of, this is what life is. And then was part of a very successful rugby team as well. So at the end of that year, I went back and asked, is Ulster an opportunity? Because I wanted to come back and play for Ireland. I'm 23. I'm not completely gone from, hopefully the opportunity. Didn't happen for me. I then got Cornish Pirates of all people then came and asked me. So it was again another opportunity, which I spoke to at length. At this stage now, my father has been told he's only got about 4 or 5 months to live. So it was like, do we go home? Do I spend time? Once again, incredible support. No, Gareth, this is you're in your path here. It was my first actual proper professional rugby contract. So where I was a full-time professional at 23. And yeah, I took the risk to go down there. So it probably gave me a real kind of backbone to put myself out of my comfort zone to go and achieve it. Literally, I had to go and learn a lot of tough lessons in that point where if I had sat back and went, is someone going to hand this to me? I probably wouldn't have got it. And that's probably where I was at. And I wish I'd have got that when I was 19 or 20.
It's amazing
Yes.
what you can achieve when you have to, when your back's against the wall. So no, fair play.
Yeah, fair play on that.
Yeah. So when you look back now, what's one practical behavior that helped you reset quickly rather than dwell on what didn't happen?
I think that's the biggest thing. If I'm being honest, it probably took me a little bit of time. Like I was always chasing something. So I always knew, like, I could always, if I relate back to my goal kicking, I always thought I was the best and still believe it to this day. I'm the best goal kicker in the world. Um, Whether that's true or not, it's just something that I believe that I have. And always being able to rely on it. And I knew I had a lot of weaknesses in my personal rugby game. I knew that. So the only way that if I turn my super strength, which was goal kicking, into something that somebody wants, and then I have to work on the other elements. So that meant that I had to spend as much time on those other areas of my game, which then hopefully gets me up to speed, which is what potentially a team or a coach was looking for at the time. And alongside that is just having that discipline to go, yes, I am going to get up and work on these areas. Now, I do hear everybody says about being the hardest worker in the room. I get that. But again, you've got to have a personal idea about yourself in that environment. And again, being the hardest worker in the room, sometimes you have to work smarter to be the hardest worker in the room. It's about understanding what works for you and what you're trying to achieve. And I suppose if you're to look back on it, it's kind of like this was part of my journey to me to get to where I wanted to be, which effectively was my final day as a professional rugby player, is when I achieved everything. That was just a journey along the way that a lesson I had to learn to get to that point of just keep moving forward a little bit like Rocky said, keep moving forward.
No, 100%. And I mean, that's gold there, I think, for any leaders, be a rugby player or business leader, that self-reflection to know yourself, know what you're good at, and I love the way you framed it, your super strength with your kicking, but also to know what you need to improve upon, what you need to keep working on to be the better version of yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like, but it's asking for continuous feedback, whether it be positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see things as negative. It's probably not the right term. It's work-ons. You're constantly trying to do work-ons. You're trying to get yourself better. You're not, like, at the end of the day, you're never going to be the finished article, no matter what you do. And it's important that you have that kind of growth mindset around what you want to achieve. And if you go to the end of your goal and say, this is what I want to get to or what I want to achieve, and you work your way back, you kind of go, right, how do I get there? What steps do I need to go along? But that's my journey. Somebody else's might be different in how they achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's about finding what works for you and what makes you tick. Now, for me, I always kind of carried a chip on my shoulder, which was, I was always told, if I give you another rugby context, I couldn't tackle, I couldn't pass off my left hand, I wasn't that quick. So I always had this kind of, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you this. I'm going to do that. And that is what works for my personality. That's what works for me. That won't work for everyone. And that's important that people can kind of find that. And I think from a leader's perspective, if you can know yourself so well, then it's about empowering people around you to understand that, right, well, I know I'm not good at potentially, I'm not maybe good at being the emotional driver. So I need to have somebody who's the emotional driver over here, and I might be the tactical guy. So it's about
Mm-hmm.
having the right people around you, I suppose, from a leadership point of view and as a personal development point of view.
For sure, for sure.
It's really interesting. I mean, we had Willie Anderson, who I'm sure you know, on the show, and you definitely would be in Willie Anderson's category of warriors when he described players and teamwork. So, and you know, let's move on. I mean, you've definitely got resilience in abundance, because I know that you lived with the king of Penzance when you were in Penzance. Probably not an easy man to live with. And we move on to building a winning culture. So, like the mindset as well. I know with Exeter Chiefs, knowing the club, that your mindset would fit in to their culture. But could you explain to the listeners the habits Exeter Chiefs would build to create a winning culture? It wasn't built on slogans, it was built on hard work.
Oh, it was built on friendships and trust, if I'm being honest. It was a group of guys who were brought together with a common purpose, a common goal. And we all kind of, once again, it fed into me perfectly as Exeter Chiefs were always trying to achieve. It was almost like they'd built and built and built, and they were trying to get to the next level. Bit like myself, like I was trying to get to the highest level possible, looking for the right opportunity. And the group that was brought together when I joined Exeter Chiefs were all people who were told by somebody else that you're not good enough, or you haven't achieved fully. Like I could go right from the team that got us promoted. Everyone was told something at some point. And that's such an easy thing to feed on. But the best thing about that was it was a lot of us were not from we weren't from the area. So we all had, or like my best friends were people from South Africa, and we were all brought in and we all bought into it. So we all socialized together. Our families knew each other, and we had a real close knit group. And every time we took the field, we would have, well, not even take the field. Every time we trained or come into work, it was about making sure we were better, because we were nowhere near the finished article. We were always chasing the next thing. So it was quite an easy thing to build. And we talked about it. I know Rob Baxter always talked a lot about, if you want to be treated like men, you have to be men. So it was like, you work hard during the week, you put in a performance, you enjoy yourself. That was kind of what we talked about. We built a culture on that, where we knew if we worked hard and we put in the performance, we'd be better for it. The team would be better for it. Individuals would get success out of it, because, whether that be international caps or the monetary, might have just been just sheer enjoyment or new contract, anything. We all knew as a team, if we all performed really well, we all had different areas that we wanted to achieve, but if we all achieve things, we'd achieve things together. And it was just about building it over the course of time. We didn't just go into the Premiership as an example and say, we're going to win the Premiership this year. No, we kept goals pretty simple, and it was about, right, we want to finish in the next 5 weeks, we want to achieve X amount of points. And if we achieved that, we would get a social or a celebration. It was always simple things along the way. And it just snowballed, where then it became people wanted to come to the club.
And
It was very empowering that he would have handled a lot of, he would give us a bit of direction, but he was very much over to us. You know, just like anything, I think the best thing that Rob did was he gave us a platform and he gave us a confidence that, again, if I think back to when we just started the Premiership, it was even Rob was the same. So Rob was brand new. He was been coaching probably at that level 2-3 years. Like Rob, I had joined the club. Rob was the forwards coach. He wasn't the head coach. And he was kind of offered the role after Pete Druitt, what happened to him, and he was kind of given the opportunity. So the good thing with Rob was he was learning with us. I always felt like we were, that's what made us probably a little bit closer as a whole unit, that there was no egos. So there was nobody running around going they were above the team. And we were all trying to achieve together. We obviously knew that, like, our first game, we didn't know what to expect in the Premiership because there's only about 3 of us that played in it. So there was an excitement. It was an easy thing to, almost go, let's be better for the experience. There was no pressure to win it. It was, let's be better off the back end of it and we'll enjoy ourselves. And it was a very simple way of keeping us all kind of grounded. And I'd say we probably had that for the first couple of years because we got to experience a lot of first trip to Europe. How exciting. Let's make it an adventure. Let's go. Our first opportunity to go to the Leicester Tigers, our first opportunity to play at Dungannon Irish. You name it. They were all firsts. So they were really easy ways to get you excited.
Yeah, I mean, Rob was, a great leader, and I always felt, having played at the Chiefs, Rob was the captain when I played at the Chiefs, and he was a guy you didn't want to let down. Not because he would get cross or anything. You just know that he just loved the club, basically.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing. You knew when you looked at Rob that he was the club. We were all brought there, and the way that we were. And it was like anything. We didn't really turn over a lot of players because people loved being there.
Yeah.
And it's like anything. It's only, I suppose, now you're seeing the changes that are happening with the coaching team. The coaching team was the same. Like, I literally had the same coaching team the entire time I was there before I became part of it. And we could instill, I suppose the best thing was we were always instilling what was best for our team. And then we would add to our team on years, which would then mean that we could put strategies together that suited our team. So we were able to go, well, the game's going this way. And I always felt as a team, we were always almost trying to push the boundaries of the game because we were always the same group. So we kind of knew each other so well. Right, we might need to bring in a Dean Mum, for example, who might give us that little bit of international experience. Or now's the time that we might need a Jeff Parling to give us that kind of winning mentality. So that's the type of guys that came in. But we always had a group that was always very stable. The best thing was, there was always a group that was always there. So whenever we started getting players who would go off to internationals, the likes of Henry Slade, Jack Noel, these are lads who now grew up wanting to play for the club, not imports, if you want to call it. Because I see myself as an import at the Exeter Chiefs, who then grew to love the club. You were starting to see people who wanted to play for the club, join the club, be part of it, never wanted to leave it, which is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah, and 2 other things I'll say about the club as well is that they invested, if you want to bring it back to business, in the infrastructure in terms of the stadium, but also the academies that they would have around the area. They're always like looking for talented children, to come up through the ranks, and you could see them doing that. And the other thing was the network, the support network. I always thought the supporters were great at Chiefs, very, very, very supportive. So
yeah, you're 100% right. I think the biggest thing that I was very fortunate with Chiefs was when I first joined, there was about 4,000 people there, but you could see the infrastructure. So I got to know quite a few people who weren't rugby part of the club almost, which in turn, it almost felt like when you were class at junior rugby club, like you going along to your club on a Saturday, you put your number ones on after the game, you go upstairs, you have a beer, everybody meets and has a chat. It felt like that.
Yeah.
Now, it's probably changed over the years as professionalism's come in. I think COVID really hurt it. But like I knew that and Rob encouraged this. This was something he would always say, right? Win or lose, upstairs, you have to stay for at least 1 hour. So you're encouraged, but people wouldn't leave. It was like, yeah, but it's like, I would normally go for my food after, but yeah, thanks. And we had that kind of culture.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really powerful. It also meant that it's like anything. If people are coming to support me on a Saturday and I have a bad game. If they know me, they're probably not going to like give me a hard time. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I always thought that if I stand and talk to people, get to know them, hopefully then if I was poor, then it would just go, hopefully next week will be better. Like, funny that.
So, I mean, it sounds like a very, very strong environment, which is exactly like I think everybody looking from the outside in who knows the English Premiership can see that, get a sense of taste of it. And a lot of really strong individual leadership in the team, it sounds like. Can you give us an example of how players took responsibility for standards instead of waiting for direction?
Yeah, so we had a leadership group, very strong leadership group. It was right, and obviously it changed throughout. But yeah, we would have met at least once a week on a Monday morning post game, where we would sit down and we would almost before we'd have a players meeting, we'd sit down and we would have a quick chat, catch up as players, going right, what was good at the weekend, what do we need to fix, and how are we going to make sure that this week is fun. That was something we always talked about and how we make it better. We would then go and we would discuss it with the coaching staff to get a feeling of what they would have thought in around that as well. So we'd have sat and went, do you agree with this? Did you see, any points you want us to put across to the players? And then we'd have had our players meeting, and that would have been all done by 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. So we were all lined up and aligned with what the week was going to look like going forward. So having those weekly catch-ups were good. And the best thing was we didn't feel that we didn't have a voice. So, and we would have had young fellas in that group. We had academy lads in there because again, I found towards the end of my career, I don't know what an academy player thinks. So I kind of need to know their voice, and I want them to feel comfortable to come and sit and chat with me. And I suppose the best thing we had at Chiefs was everybody changed in the same room. So there was no hierarchy as such to go, like an academy lad would be sitting beside a British Lion. That was just normal. It was trying to build those kind of relationship. It meant that when we had socials, everyone felt like they were on a par together. And I think that was very powerful at the time as well. But obviously, there'd be a slight bit of boundaries between coaching staff and players, as you would expect. But we didn't feel like we couldn't go in and, like, for instance, if we disagreed, I remember very much Clermont Auvergne coming and playing against us in a Heineken Cup game. And we'd been going okay, but we took an absolute hammer and we lost by 60 points at home. We'd been in the Premiership final the year before. And I remember Jeff Parley, myself, Thomas Waldrum going in our kit after the game. I think Jeff was bleeding from his ear. We marched straight into the coach's office and went, right, this needs fixed right now. We're not even going to wait to Monday. It needs done now, because we were playing Ulster the following week, or Bath, I think it was the following week. And we kind of needed to go this, like, we've been in the Prem final. We're embarrassing ourselves here. And we worked it out. We sat, and we went and gone. No, we didn't win the following week, but what we did do was we put a plan together. We went and we did it as a group. I think that was really quite important that we had those opportunities.
Outstanding. And I just want to touch upon one thing you mentioned there at the start of your answer there, making things fun, and I think that's a really, really important lesson. The best environments, both sporting and business, have that level of crack between people. Doesn't mean you don't work hard, doesn't mean you're not serious, doesn't mean that you're not focused on the specifics that need to get right, in whatever context it's put in, but having that fun environment where you can have a joke with your co-workers, your teammates, your managers, your coaches, etc., is hugely important, I think.
Yeah, 100% agree. There was one thing we used to talk about, and I still kind of live my life a little bit by it now, was we used to talk about ACE was a big thing, which was attitude, commitment, and enjoyment. Enjoyment was the last thing.
Yeah.
So you get your attitude right at the start. And that was something we used just coming into the Premiership. It grew over the course of years. It changed to the different values were added to it, but that was the core of it. And it was actually when we were talking about this, it was a prop from New Zealand who actually said all the things you can throw out buzzwords as much as you want, but he was the one who actually said, boys, we need to enjoy this. We need to have, something about us. And I always think if you get your attitude right, this is the way I kind of say it now. You get your attitude right, it means you're going to turn up on time, you're going to train hard, you're going to be the standards. If the times are here, we're on time. And, if you're 5 minutes early, you're actually late, stuff like that. And then it was about committing to your teammates, commit to the journey, what you want to do. What do you want to achieve as a person? And what does the team need? What do I need to do for my teammates so he can achieve that? But we're going to make sure we're going to have some fun when we do it. And that was the biggest thing around it, was smiles on faces. If you're passionate and you're enjoying what you do, you tend to be quite good at it. And that was the way we kind of talked about a lot of things.
Love that.
Yeah. And we got Stephen McIver talks about humour, doesn't he? He's on a podcast next week about gelling people. You have like people with humour in a network. It gels the community, the team together. So let's move on to pressure, obviously kicking. In 2017, you basically kicked Exeter to win the championship. How do you keep calm when the pressure's on? The stakes are high. Do you have an internal script that you rely on?
I'd probably built a bit of resilience over the years of being in those sort of scenarios like before. Like I'd been in a championship final and would kick something like, I think I had 20 odd points in that game, which got us into promotion. And if I actually look back on that and generally, if I knew the history of what Exeter Chiefs were trying to do and everything, if I knew it properly, probably would have felt a little bit more pressure than it did. Yeah, like it's over the time. You kind of get used to, you build a routine. Like I had a routine in my head that had worked. I'd been pretty confident around it that, look, at the end of the day, I looked at it. I know you're probably looking at the kick that I had to win it in extra time. The way I seen it was, I'll probably get another chance because there was 3 minutes to go. Worst case scenario is I miss the kick. They're going to kick it long. I might get a drop goal attempt. I might get another penalty. It'll go to a penalty shootout. It's not all going to come down to me. And I kind of seen it in a different way. I kind of seen it. I chatted to a guy who actually was an actor, and he kind of referred it. Did you feel like you were performing at that stage? And I kind of went, well, probably. He put it in a different way to me. He goes, well, it probably was, because that's my time to perform. Bit like a prop, his time to perform was the scrum. So I look back on it, Tom Francis had to perform his role to give me my opportunity to perform mine. If the hooker doesn't throw into the line out, I don't win. I didn't put we don't win the line out. If someone doesn't put their head over the jackal and steals the ball, I'm not the one putting my head over the ball. So that's kind of what my role in the team was at that stage. So I kind of computed it along with a lot of practice and a lot of hours and being in the situation probably a few times before, obviously not to the same extent, but I didn't put it on this. I didn't put everything on it. I had a routine that I was comfortable with, that I knew would work. I'd been in a good stage where I was kicking pretty well on the day, so I felt pretty confident. So yeah, I didn't put it down to go, this is it. Now, I don't know if I would say that now if I was in it again, but that's kind of where I was from a head point of view.
Yeah, you probably had a bit of stress exposure from experience, and because you were used to that pressure, it felt second nature to you.
Oh, you can't say used to it, but I'd been in the situation before. And I think I'd missed in the situation before. It's like anything. When I go out and do kicking practices with some of the kickers that I work with, I'm always quick to go, it's all right to miss, guys. It's not a problem. That's, you should get used to it, because that's the way you have to be able to move on.
Yeah.
Like you might miss a tackle in the game, or you might miss a pass or something not go right. You've got to be able to move on. And I think, again, that probably took me years to learn that. I used to base a lot of my performance on, I might have missed 2 or 3 kicks, but we might have won by 50 points and I might have assisted 5 or 6 tries. But I just assumed that my game was bad because I missed 2 or 3 kicks. Because if I bring you back, that was my super strength. That's what I was meant to be in the team for.
Yeah.
But I quickly realized, actually, that was just part of what I was in the team for. I had to run a team. I had to make people feel good. So, yeah, it's understanding yourself in those types of moments.
I love the way that you've framed that in your mind, if I'm understanding this correctly, separating the skill from the outcome. Even though there's 3 minutes left on the clock, the outcome, it matters, but it doesn't matter because you're going to have another opportunity to do this and so on and so forth. So you've immediately taken some of that or dissolved some of that pressure on yourself so you can just focus on something you've done. I don't know how many kicks you would do during a regular week, but I'm sure a lot, and probably slotted a very high percentage of them. So you're just going back to that skill that that is your super strength.
Yeah, it's having the confidence in it. So I'm pretty confident in what I did. I said at the start there that I still believe to be one of the best in the world. To be able to rely on that at that moment was something that I could lean on. And if that was what worked for me and put me in the right headspace, that's kind of where I felt I was. I also felt that we had momentum in the game. So we'd had an opportunity I had a kick literally to get us into extra time, which is probably more stressful than the one that I actually had to win it. Because that one was, if I missed that, we lose. And it was right bang in front of the post in the 22. So for a kicker, you don't miss that. And that would have been hard to deal with. And that's probably the one that I hit the worst. You kind of, if I look at it, I watch it back and I go, oh, because probably that's one that I kind of went in my head that this could go wrong. But the one that I had to win it was like, this is my opportunity to win it. It's not my opportunity to lose anything here.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to be lost if I miss. It's just going to be, this is my shot to, like, we could have kicked off and I think the last 2 minutes we ended up saying we were going to run the ball back to Wasps. We didn't want to give them the ball because we were like, if we give them the ball, there's a high chance they're going to get a chance. So that was a lesson we had to learn as well. But we probably learned that lesson a few weeks earlier when we played Ulster, because we played Ulster in a Heineken Cup game and I hit a drop goal and we tried to kick the ball back to Ulster and they ended up at the drop goal to beat us. So you learn lessons as you go.
Was that game in Exeter or in Belfast?
No, that was in Belfast. That was in Belfast.
What was that like?
We got them in the return legs. So it was okay.
Very much. So what was that like going back to Belfast? How did that feel personally?
That was the greatest experience I've ever had, because I brought Exeter Chiefs back and I was captain. I remember flying back, and I remember whenever we got promoted, I did an interview with one of the local newspapers and they asked me, "Are you still playing rugby?" I was like, "Yeah, we've just been in the Premiership for a year or two." And so it was to be there, because that's where I dreamt of playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there on a Saturday night in the Heineken Cup and I'd kicked 18 points. I think we were 18-17. And then I hit a drop goal to put us in the lead with 2 minutes to go. And it is easily the greatest feeling I've ever had on a rugby field, without doubt. So yeah, it was a great experience to do that. Now, obviously we didn't win the game, which was disappointing. And Paddy Jackson came and kicked the drop goal after it. I went in the changing room and cried sore after that. I don't cry after rugby games, but I cried after that game because just the emotion of having my family and everything there that was with it. To be there with a team, to showcase it in front of a full stadium. It was a great occasion. Delighted that we got the win when they came back to Sandy Park.
Very good.
Brilliant.
Very good. So you're obviously known as staying calm. How does that calm spread so quickly through the team, and how do leaders use that in a high pressure environment?
Yeah, staying calm. I wouldn't say I stayed calm all the time. I think it's about understanding the group that you have around you. And if I was to give you an example of what my leadership would be, I'd be quite an emotional driver. It'd be one that I would kind of push, having that little bit of tactical awareness as well because of the position that I play, but having an emotional driver to understand that the players around me, there's certain buttons that I could push on certain people. Like if I give you an example, the amount of number nines that I played with over the years, Nick White, I spent a couple of years with him. I knew that I could literally have an argument with him in the field and he would fight back with me and there'd be no problem because that is how we could react. And if Nick White went off the pitch after 60 minutes, Jack Maunders, who was a younger nine, would come on the field, I would very quickly have to change the way that I would communicate and talk with him because he would need maybe an arm around his shoulder a couple of times. And it was more around being emotionally attached to what we were trying to do. And from my perspective, I knew that there was times where I needed to be clear mind to make good decisions as a 10, but I had players around me who could help me in that scenario, whether it be take this penalty to touch or if I could look to our forward pack and go, are you on top in the scrum? Because I don't know. I'm not putting my head in the scrum, so I don't know. Need to know how the feeling of the whole team is at any stage.
So very important for you then, you think then, to really know the different personalities of the people you're playing with so you can get the best out of them.
Yeah, I do. I think, and if I give you context around the standoff, the bar that I'm involved with, again, understanding the team that's in there, that I'm I am quite novice when it comes to being in running a pub. Um, I like when I was part of it and we were opening it, I knew that I had to get certain individuals in there who knew the business first and foremost. I can learn it as I go, but I know that I don't want the chef at the front pouring pints, and I don't want the barman in the kitchen making the dinner. So it's understanding, empowering people to do their role. And I think that's a really important thing, that trusting people to, if for instance, if you've hired someone to do a job, they've got to do their job, let them do their job. If they need guidance in that as a leader, that's what your role is, because you're ultimately trying to create that enjoyment again, that if people enjoy what they're doing, they're going to be good at it. And I think that's really important, that there's going to be a time and place where you have to stand over maybe somebody. But again, you've hired someone to do a job. Like, I would never stand in front of you, Fitzy, and say, I need you to scrum as you're tight. You need your head in this position. You'd laugh at me, so it's important that you kind of know that.
But I might give you some kibbing tips.
Sorry?
But I might give you some kibbing tips.
I might laugh back.
And you'd be well too. Yeah. No, good points, Gareth.
Let's move on now to feedback, analysis and constant improvement. So one question that I always have, my business is headhunting. So I always say to people, like, if you've got the same skills as someone else, what makes you, why should you get the job over someone else? What's your USPs? And one of the things from my research anyway, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you liked analysis. Is that correct? Or
yeah, I think analysis is good from a perspective. Definitely think that rugby's easy because, it's good that you can sit down and get quick, instant feedback. That's the best thing with rugby. It has to be instant feedback, because you have a game one Saturday, you've got to improve, or you've got to get the positives right for the following week. Because I do think analysis and feedback should be a two-way thing. It shouldn't be all, work-ons. It should give you and empower you to be positive for what you do. And it's important that you get feedback from coaches and from your peers, I think, as well. A really important thing, because again, we all see the game, I'm talking from a rugby perspective, we see the game in a different light and we can see it all differently. And I think the more conversations we have around it is really important. So what I've tried to do now is, if I give you an example, when I'm coaching, I like to sit with the halfbacks and get them all in a room and sit down and go, right, let's watch a game. And what would you do here? And what do you think's right? And what does it feel like? What does it feel like at that stage? Because again, as a coach, I'm not on the field, so I can't interpret their feelings. Why did you make that decision? As long as you've got a reason behind why you made that decision, then it's fine. And I think in around the analysis stuff, there's so much it can give you. I wouldn't be somebody that would go, that I've seen this has to be the way of it. It's kind of like, you kind of have to live it a little bit as well, where I'm being adaptable. I think one of the best things someone told me about coaching was be adaptable at any stage, where I could have dreamt up this session and it's working really well. And then I get two players go down injured, right? The numbers don't work and I've got to be able to change, which is what I had to do on a rugby field. Whereas I could plan a game plan for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is what's definitely going to happen. And we're planning because this player is going to play. And the next thing, oh, he wasn't selected. Or we turn up and it's raining. Or the wind's blowing the way that we weren't thinking it was. So it's really quite important that you use analysis in the right direction, obviously for obvious reasons, but also have a knowledge in the background that you can change the plan if it's required.
yeah, you're talking about a very modern phenomenon now as well. Like if you talk about, say, AI and stuff like that, you could probably like interpret games very quickly, but you need the knowledge to interpret those things, and it would, if it's used correctly, would give you an edge, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, AI. Look, I'm new into AI. If I'm
Yeah.
being honest, I think most of us are. The way, yeah, I think if you can use tools that's going to make things, effective for us, brilliant. Absolutely, lean into it, learn it. If we can sit down and actually get at a full gauge of what it is and how it can benefit you, of course. But also, let's not go away from the fact that actually having conversations and talking to each other and understanding, especially your team, having that constant feedback of understanding how do you see the game, or how do you see the business going, or what do you think of my leadership, as an example? Asking these questions, because at the end of the day, everyone should be in the room. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. Like if I'm running the pub, I want the place to be, somewhere where the people come and enjoy themselves. If they're not enjoying themselves, I need to know why they're not enjoying themselves. Or my workers or colleagues or teammates, for instance. I don't enjoy coming into work and training. And why do you not enjoy training? What can we do to fix it? Well, this is a non-negotiable. We kind of need to do this to get you to this point. Or so it's really important that we have those kind of constant touch points. And that was the beauty of rugby. Rugby is easy, and anyone who's played in any professional sport will obviously understand that. That it's a constant moving thing. Whereas I find maybe in businesses, it's not as easy to get everybody together and sit down and have social environments. And I think the most important moments are actually when you sit down and socialize together. Like find out about family. Why are you in a bad mood? Something's not right with your family. Right. How can I help? Little things right across the board, because it's always a moving particle.
Mhm. You've touched upon feedback there, and honest feedback can be tough, as you say, in different environments. How did Exeter manage to be direct without cutting confidence?
Well, again, we were always about the results of the Saturday, so you have to be realistic, and I think honest feedback is so much better than. There was nothing worse than. Well, I give you an example. There was a stage in my career where I felt I wasn't getting an opportunity, and I wasn't playing. And like realistically, I probably wasn't playing well enough, and the fella ahead of me was. But something that really frustrated me one time was when I sat down and I was asking for feedback. How can I be better here, there, and everything? He says, one thing I was told, Gareth, if I'm being honest with you, it's a toss of a coin. And to which point I asked, can I be in the room the next time you toss the coin? Because it seems to be coming up on the wrong side a lot. So,
Yeah.
but to me, that wasn't honest feedback. If you'd have turned to me and said, look, I'm just going to be straight with you, Gareth. The team's going really well. The guy in front of you is performing unbelievably well. You got to keep doing what you're doing. It's making him better, and it's actually making you better because you're chasing it. You're not being handed it. That would have been far better for me from a mindset point of view to go, okay, right, I can get my head around this. I understand where my value in the team is. It's probably when I got older, when I realized, right, I'm probably not the first choice here. There's a young fella coming through, Joe Simmons at the time. For me, he's going to be the future of the club. So how am I going to make him better, which is going to make the team better? Well, I'm going to train unbelievably well. I'm not going to hand it to him because obviously I don't want him to have it. But at the same time, I know that that's the future of the club. And if I give him an easy ride here and just, I don't know, throw my head up and not really try, he's got an easy ride. Team's not going to be good because he's just getting the jersey handed to him. So that was my role in the team, which at the time was the reason for pushing hopefully the club being better too. And I think that's a really important thing, that you don't accept things. You kind of go, right, I'm going to constantly keep working hard here. And whether I get the rewards of it, I'll be honest with you, I did get the rewards from that on my last day of the season, because we achieved the double on my last game as a professional rugby player. And all I did was train for it.
That's an amazing story. What was the response to the coin tossing question?
It was, I think it was like Harvey Two Faces coin. Yeah.
But you make a very important point about chasing for feedback, because a lot of people don't have the guts to ask for honest feedback because they don't like or worried about what they're going to hear in business. I mean, what tips could you give people if you're slightly concerned about the feedback that you might receive, so you never ask for it to improve?
Yeah, well, if you've got to have a growth mindset with it, haven't you? So first of all, you want to know if you're doing a good job or not a good job. Ultimately, if you're involved in a business, Whether you're the owner, manager, or you're a worker in there, everything is designed to push it forward. So it's all about achieving. The better the business does, the better whatever it is you're looking for, whether you're looking for promotion or you're looking for monetary or whatever, you will all have individual goals, and every team will. The individual within the team will have an individual goal. So keeping people moving forward and getting better and giving them targets and goals to go after, no matter how that is, that could be a weekly, monthly, whatever, yearly. I think it's really important that you keep people moving in the right direction, because at the end of the day, we would have looked at it this way. If somebody got an opportunity to get a better contract somewhere else that we couldn't have given them, that is because we've helped them achieve that goal. And I think that's really important. Is like when we got internationals selected for, like, I remember a couple of Aussie lads coming over to us and their international career being finished. And Dean Munn was exactly that fella. He came over, he had 30, 40 caps for Australia. I'm coming over now. I'm actually coming over to enjoy a bit of life, enjoy it. He got there, he worked hard, he was part of a team, he added incredible value. He ended up playing in the World Cup final in 2015.
Wow.
So from his point of view, I felt incredibly proud to be part of that journey. I also remember when Jack Noel got selected for the British Lions, the first ever Exeter Chiefs player to be selected for that group. And I remember sitting in the lunchroom and it being read out. I felt I'd been selected for the Lions because we'd all been part of, like, I'd known Jack since he was 18 years of age and I'd seen him grow, and he'd been part of the A team, the 18s. He'd grown up with us, he'd played with us, and there he is, he's getting his dream. And we were sitting going, we've been part of that, so that gives you a sense of pride that when you see other people's success. And I think with that is you have to kind of be in a good headspace yourself, because that can go both ways, where you can kind of go, I'm not getting my chance, or I'm not getting this or whatever. But it's just understanding that, we're all in it for one goal and we're all trying to achieve one thing, but people along the way might branch out and get a couple of things along the way.
Yeah. It's a massively important point. I'd say as a leader, it's a clue whether or not your staff are engaged if they're not being asked for feedback. If the employees are not asked, if the boss isn't getting questions from the feedback, they'll probably could question the motivation.
Yeah, well, motivation, it's a two-way thing though as well, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
like as a coach, I want to know if,
you're right.
right, what's my session like there? Was it beneficial? Did you feel like you understood what we were trying to achieve? All these little small bits and pieces, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve the same goal here. We're trying to, if I give you an example with the Irish women's team, when I'm in with them, I like to get feedback. Like, as I only had a conversation with a couple of them the other day. It's like, I have never in my life played a women's game. So I don't understand fully what your mindset is for games. So I want to learn. I want to know, is more can I give you, or are you getting all you need? Because again, it's all new to me, and I just want to be better so I can give as much information or as little as they need, because sometimes maybe they don't want the same information.
So it's an incredibly important point there, because what you're talking about is having an environment that's safe where you can give feedback. So like when you play Clermont, was it, and you bang on the door, that you can do that as a player because you've got the environment for honest feedback, which is incredibly important.
Yeah, well, it goes back to trust again, isn't it?
Yeah.
So understanding that between us, that at the end of the day, if I'm coaching or if I'm talking to my coach, I want to be comfortable enough to say, I think we need to try and do this, that it's not going to be held against me.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing around that. And creating that environment can be tough, but I think to build relationships, and I think building relationships away from work areas, I think is really important in that. And I think the more opportunities you can create around that and breaking down social barriers is really important.
Moving on to the last section, which is transitioning. Obviously, retirement hits athletes hard. What was the toughest part for you for stepping into life after rugby?
It's difficult because I didn't really. So if I give you an example, I had a 2-year playing contract, 2 years coaching. So whenever that finished, I suppose the hardest thing for me was I when you walk into Exeter Chiefs, you turn left, you go into the one changing room that you had with all the players. You take an extra 8 feet beyond that, you turn right, you walk into the coach's office. So that probably was the hardest bit for me, actually doing that. And when I went into the room, I was kind of finding who I was, because I would say for the first 18 months of that 2-year contract, I was very much kind of in limbo, because I had almost socialized with the players, and I knew how the players would talk in their players' meetings, and I knew what they thought of the guys next door. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing what the guys next door are actually thinking of the players. So I kind of found myself in kind of a difficult spot where, and I'd come into a brand new role. So Exeter Chiefs had never had a kicking coach. So I was very much trying to establish what that looked like, while trying to distance myself slightly from players, but not to the point where I couldn't have a relationship with them. It was a tricky situation for me in that perspective, but I always had other outside influences. I obviously had the bar, which had at that stage was probably about 4 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. So I had other interests as well, but that was a difficult enough time to try and really lock it down. It wasn't until a couple of the players started to leave that then it was like the generation, like I was fortunate, I took the under 18s when I first came out. Those players started to come through, and they kind of seen me as a coach as opposed to a player.
Yeah, it's an interesting transition there, isn't it? You know, and it's very difficult when you do know some of those guys and they were your mates and you're transitioning out. I think that's probably the hardest part as you're starting your journey as a coach, for sure. So you now coach,
Yeah.
you own the Standoff Bar. What's one rugby lesson you've taken into business that still holds up every day?
I think for me, it's about communication between everyone. And I definitely think the more we can communicate in everything. So if I give you a rugby context, playing, I need to know what my nine's doing, I need to know what my 15's feeling, I need to know what my forwards are feeling. Having that communication is huge. As seen from a business point of view, being able to communicate, right, where are we at in terms of what events are coming up, or what are we planning? I think pre-planning is another thing. You need to communicate about what the plan could be going forward. I'm not saying that the plan can't change, because it obviously will. Loads of things, factors can come into it. Um, but having an open line of communication amongst the group, I think, is really important for growth going forward. And yeah, it's something that I try to instill as much as I can even now.
And on the Standoff, how does that start? Am I right in saying it was a garage?
Yeah. So again, geographically, where we are at Exeter Chiefs, it was usually a 3 to 4 hour bus trip on the way home. And so by the time you'd be able to get back from a game, it was 10, half 10. It was more around at the stage I had kids were born. So instead of lads were going out, and you wanted somewhere to kind of socialize after a bus trip home usually. And we would have had good bus trips on the way back. Pretty much, that enjoyment factor, which was really good. So it was more around, I had moved to a new house. I'd got a garage, which when I moved, there was an old fridge that I brought with me. I put it out in the garage, and a couple of patio chairs, threw a TV up there, and a few bags of crisps and a bit of food. Some lads were happy not to maybe have a couple more extra drinks, that they didn't want to go into town. Younger lads would have obviously went into town, but older boys would have come back. And I kind of just established ourselves that we kind of got known. This is right back to Steno's after the trip home. I'd ring the wife, put the pizzas on. We're going to be down the road. There might have been a boxing match on, simple things like that. It ended up being, I had my testimonial in 2017, and it had got a bit of noise where a few the media would have come down and said, have you anything that's kind of cool about you? And our media guys had said, oh, Gareth Steenson's got a bar in his garage, and that's where they go after games. People had come and seen it. And yeah, it was a fella came to me after my testimonial season saying, you interested in bringing that thing to town? I was like, I don't really know. Yeah, how are we going to do that? 4 months later, it's open, away we go. A whirlwind. It sounded easy. It certainly wasn't. And we had plenty of ups and downs along the way. But again, like I said, over the course of time, we involved it adapted. If I'm being honest, I wanted to have all the Irish drinks, Smithwick's, all those sort of drinks. Very quickly realized people in England weren't that bothered about that. So I had to make sure that we had the right drinks that people wanted. I wanted to have a guy in the corner with a fiddle playing like you would do if you were in Temple Bar in Dublin. People weren't interested in that. So we had to try to evolve. So yeah, it had an idea, but it kind of escalated. But I had a lot of help from people. Like, honestly, the amount of people that came out. I was lucky because my testimonial had meant that I'd met a lot of business people in Exeter, which kind of really helped. And they were brilliant, the amount of people who stepped up and helped.
Sounds like a great
So,
spot.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you have to get down. It's the best pint of Guinness.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like the standoff is a remarkable story. Exeter's a remarkable story. Your story is a remarkable story. Just two things before we go into the quick fire. Firstly, Tony Rowe. How instrumental was Tony Rowe? And his story is remarkable as well in the Chiefs' rise.
Yeah, and listen, Tony Rowe, like I've seen the media and everything that's with it. I have so much time for Tony Rowe. Tony Rowe looked after me incredibly well. I'll be honest, whenever I was leaving Exeter Chiefs, he was the hardest conversation that I had when I was sitting down to actually say that I was going, and couldn't have been better. Was very quick to go, I'm going to help you in any shape or form. He was so loyal to a lot of lads, especially the group that I had come through whenever we gained promotion, maybe just had a bit of a different soft spot towards us. But like, honestly, what he's done for the club, what he's done for the business community in Exeter and the southwest of England has been incredible. Now, he will rub people up the wrong way. Of course he will. He's a businessman. Because he wants the best for the club. He wants the best for the Exeter Foundation that they've got in place down there. You know, he is a very shrewd operator as well at times, but honestly, as a man, what he's achieved and what he's brought to the club has been phenomenal.
We had Mark Evans on the show a few weeks ago, and he talked about we asked him about leadership and performance. What's elite performance to him? And he's saying having all the leaders in a line. So you had Tony Rowe, who would drive the bus. And then you've got Rob Baxter. I mean, Rob Baxter, who's the club man through and through, and everyone was aligned for the same purpose. I think when Tony Rowe first got involved in the club, he was another story. Every story is the same. He was sponsoring the club because he was building his business up, and then he would employ a lot of the players as well and he grew with the club as well, his business. It's just a remarkable story. And then coming to your final day, what was it like for you winning the European Cup and the Premiership? I mean, how did you think? What were you thinking?
Look, I suppose
What a journey!
Yeah, like it had everything. It literally, to finish on that. It's to be honest with you, people always said, you know, sports people don't get, or they don't happen too often where you get everything and go. Look, if I look back at my rugby career, I'd love to have an opportunity to play for my country. I would. I understood there was an opportunity to move home at one point to Ulster. Actually, that was a really cool thing whenever I was asked to go, and ended up not taking the opportunity because I could have went back. I could have maybe played in the Rugby World Cup, but I wouldn't have won the Heineken Cup, and I wouldn't have completed my journey with a club that I'd grown to love, and to finish it the way it did, to play in a Heineken. Well, I know I didn't get on the field, but to be involved in a Heineken Cup final, albeit in COVID, which was disappointing, but it's still a Heineken Cup final, and then to play in the Premiership final the following week, like, dreams are made of that sort of stuff. If you could have said to me, that's how you're going to finish your rugby career, whenever I was trying to get a contract when I was 18, 19 years of age, at 36 years of age, of course you're going to go, well, that must be some journey, some story. So I was fulfilled in my rugby career. Like, I was like, at the end of the day, yeah, I'd like to have an opportunity to play for Ireland. It didn't happen. It wasn't my journey. It wasn't part of what it was meant to be for me. But yeah, to sit in that change room after with 2 trophies, to have played in every competition I played in, and to win everything that I played in was pretty cool. So yeah, it was, I don't know how else to describe it. It was incredible way to finish a career.
It's just a remarkable story. You, Tony Rowe, Exeter, Rob Baxter, everyone that was involved, the players. Yeah, remarkable. So I'm going to go on to the quick fire questions here to finish off. One word that defines great leadership to you.
Trust.
The best player you've ever lined up with and why?
Sorelli Nakalavuki, who was a Fijian centre who was about 19 stones, and I've never seen a man who could step people in a phone box and run over the top of people and bulldozer them. The best example is when we played in Dublin against Leinster, when he ran into the two Irish centres, Gordon Darcy and Brian O'Driscoll, and swatted them both down on the floor. So that is a memory that will live.
Okay, and one habit you wish every business leader adopted?
Suppose, again, it's probably trust again, isn't it? It's trust that you trust the people around you to do their job, and trust that you're going to do your job as well.
Okay, careful on this next question. What's more stressful, a Premiership final cup kick to win the cup, or running a pub on a Saturday night?
Running a pub on a Saturday night.
Definitely.
I've kicked a rugby ball plenty of times, so I'm probably more in tune with that.
And I don't know, I'm actually intrigued how you're going to answer the next one. If you could replay one moment in your career just for the feeling, which one are you choosing?
I've probably already touched on it, but it was the drop goal that I hit with 3 minutes to go at what was called the Kingspan. It's now the Aphrodite, I think it's called. And whenever I put Exeter Chiefs in front against Ulster on a Saturday night, unfortunately, then it was taken away from me about 90 seconds later. But if I could replicate and bottle that one feeling as it goes over and I run back, was by far the greatest feeling I've ever had in sport. I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it now.
Wow. So Gareth, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your insights. Business can learn loads from it. It's just a remarkable story. I think all supporters of Exeter Chiefs were incredibly proud of what you did and what you achieved. And thank you very much for coming on the show.
No, thanks very much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time with me.
Thank you, Gareth. Really, really interesting conversation.